we have information that was given to us that the State Department not only covered up and tried to delete the profile of an individual that's currently in the United States that's on the known terrorist watch list, but in an effort to undermine the previous Trump administration, they actually put a little girl, or are attempting to put a little girl into this individual's custody. So obviously we don't want children in the custody of terrorists, for one. And B, as a result of them intentionally undermining President Trump's previous decision in this custody case for this little girl, she was sent to Afghanistan, where she was actually sexually assaulted at 1 year old. And so my office is currently in the process of receiving that information. I am going to be blowing the lid on this. I am now currently sitting on Foreign Affairs. And so I've actually talked to Congressman Mass, who's our chairman. When I'm telling you, Sean, that there is no way that I'm going to let these people get away with that, I seriously mean it, especially because there's a child involved.
All right, guys, you see the grin. You see the grin? This is it. This is the show. We go into the weekend. We got some balls. We're going to have some fun. By the way, I'll get a little update in that in a second. And then Monday, Martin Luther King, double federal holiday. It's Inauguration Day and Martin Luther King. We should get one more day, by the way. You know, I think that Inauguration Day is a federal holiday and Martin Luther King Day is a federal holiday. So we should get like Tuesday off too. Just saying. Not that it would matter to me, because I would do it anyway. But we're going to be live, blow by blow, all day. Right? So tune into the morning meeting. Then I'm going to sit there and give you guys insight that nobody else will give you about what's happening on the platform, blah, blah, blah. And then at 6 o'clock, we will do our show and give you analysis of the speech. It's going to be an insider's view that nobody else can. Just telling you, I've been there. I've been on the platform, been behind the scenes. I know what's going on. I know where they're coming, where they're going, blah, 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 blah. You're going to want to see us. So join us on Monday, plus the morning meeting. If you enjoy that, we're doing a live event in D.C. on February 2nd. The link is in the show notes. It's on my social media. It's in my newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. Always go there for all things. It's free. It comes out twice a week. It's coming out today. So, you know what? Go to SeanSpicer.com. Sign up. It's free. Always welcome you to do this. Great show today. Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman from Florida, plus Air Force veteran, is joining us, plus an inside look at the balls that are going to go down this weekend. I'm emceeing one. I'm going to give you some insight into that. A lot to get to. By the way, before we get going, did you know that high blood pressure is the number one risk for mortality? In fact, 1 in 2 adults have high blood pressure. So 50% of us, right? There's a 50-50 chance that we're a ticking time bomb. Guess what I've been drinking? And let me just show you this because it's empty. Because when I say I drink something, apparently there was something in there. I do these things. I drink these things. I take Beam. I do all these things. And in this case, 120 Life. When I got it, I had a drink of it. And I'm like, this stuff tastes amazing. I had no idea how helpful this was with respect to my blood pressure. If you go to 120life.com, it's 120life.com, and use code SPICER, you can save 15% and get free shipping. This thing is guaranteed. They will back it up. It's all, like I said, it's amazing taste, right? But it will lower your blood pressure. It's formulated with ingredients that have been shown to naturally, no drugs, no injections, no nothing, help control high blood pressure. And it's endorsed by thousands of professionals. These guys are so certain it's going to help you noticeably lower your blood pressure in 2 weeks. They'll give you your money back if it doesn't. So you got nothing, literally nothing to lose except for high blood pressure. Just go to 120life.com, 120life.com. Remember to use code word SPICER to save 15%. Okay, as I mentioned, Anna Paulina Luna is here. Plus, we're going to talk about inaugurations and balls. Before I get to that, though, I want to get right into this thing and talk to you guys about what's going on. If you run a company or are in charge of financing, and it doesn't matter to me whether you've got 5 employees or 5,000, I'm telling you, this is a game changer. This is a ramp card. Look, it says Visa on one side. I'm not dumb enough to put the numbers there. I'm not giving you my ramp card. But this card is the expense management system that will save you time and money if you're the person that's doing this. No more chasing receipts. No more organizing and wasting time figuring out where it goes and trying to take pictures and everything. This stuff will make your time so much more valuable. It'll say you won't even know what to do. You'll probably just watch back episodes of the show. Their software automatically collects the receipts and categorizes it. You can set limits. They are virtual, right? So you can do a lot of stuff online, and then physical. You'll actually get a card. So if they go somewhere, they can say you're allowed to spend this much or go to this place or go to a restaurant, whatever you want. You decide. You get to set the limits as the employee, and your employees don't have to chase down receipts and spend tons of their time doing expense reports. It's easy to use and to get started. It takes like 15 minutes. I've done it myself. Again, same kind of stuff. And like I said, they'll issue the virtual and the physical cards. And here's the best part. Right now, you get $250 in your pocket when you join Ramp. So go to ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer. Cards are issued by Sutton and Celtic Bank. Members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. All right, without further ado, I want to kick it off. An amazing, amazing woman, Air Force veteran, Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back on, Sean.
You bet. So earlier this week, the House passes this Protection of Women and Girls Act in sports. I don't think this is that controversial. Apparently, only 2 Democrats could be brave enough to do this. Why was this a partisan issue?
You know, for so long, especially under the Biden administration, they've been pushing, I would say, more protections for trans individuals than actual young women. And so, as you saw, there was biological males competing in women's sports, destroying our records, really pushing away and aside some incredible female athletes. And so it's terrible that we have to even do this piece of legislation, because you would think that it's common sense. But unfortunately, the woke ideology did take hold of the Biden administration. And so we're correcting a lot of the wrong and damage that was done.
So the thing that I've never really understood about this argument, did you play sports as a kid or as in college?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I look, I got a daughter, and I'm like, okay, I thought part of the whole idea of like Title IX was, hey, we're going to give women opportunities. If I'm a woman who was the beneficiary of this, right, whether in high school or college or whatever, and then I see men, biological men, coming in and taking away those things, in any other circumstance, I would think that this would create outrage among women who fought for these rights, and yet the Democrats are siding with the biological men.
Correct. It's actually very ironic, because just to even go into Pete Hegseth's confirmation, you know, these women are arguing that women need to be put on the front lines and women need to be like literally tip of the spear combat. And yet they are literally actively also at the same time trying to waste women in sports, women's records of accomplishments in the Olympics. It is pretty sad, right? Because there are a lot of women that I think would consider themselves feminists, and they don't even fully know where they fall anymore, because the Democrat Party seems to be increasingly pushing these crazy ideologies that just don't align with normal people. But exactly like you said, Sean, you know, I'm a woman, I've played sports, and I can tell you one of the most disturbing things I saw is that women were actually getting hurt going up against these biological males, regardless of how, you know, transition they were. And so I think that that's something to also note, and that you don't literally want a man, it's never commonly publicly acceptable for a man to hit a woman unless it's a trans athlete, and then the Democrats are like perfectly okay with it.
Do you ever, I mean, I just don't know, like from a social circle or a congressional circle, like, do you ever like have these where you're like, hey guys, I get it, like politically on the left, you got to do what you got to do for the folks, either your colleagues or some people maybe in your friend group, I don't know. And you go, hey, I got it. You guys have to say these things, but like, do you really believe them? I just always wonder, are they agreeing to these things because they have to get along on the left, or do they actually believe this?
I mean, I think that some of them actually believe it, and you can tell those are the ones that'll put, you know, the trans flags outside of their office over a POW MIA flag. You know, a lot of these people sometimes tend to represent these very, very blue districts. But I would argue and say this, you know, at the end of the day, if you are, let's say, a Democrat, Democrats like to, a lot of times, especially when Trump's speaking, we're too white to signify women's suffrage and women's votes, but yet they're sitting here and actively working at erasing our ability to compete. So, you know, I say this, I have a very common sense approach. I'm not trying to tell people what to do in their bedroom, but when you were talking about taking away accomplishments and really some incredibly talented athletes, not even giving them a chance because the playing field is stacked against them when they're going up against these males, that's where I choose to get involved. And frankly, any university that's receiving federal funding, any state that's receiving federal funding and is coddling this, is seeking to waste women and really take us out of the discussions, they don't need to get federal funds.
Yeah, you mentioned Pete Hegseth's confirmation, right? And you're a veteran. You served in the Air Force. I was sort of taken back by some of the Democrat female senators and their line of questioning to Pete Hegseth, like very personal. You had Tim Kaine talking about his divorce.
Oh, it's nasty.
As like a female veteran, what do you want the message to be to women out there who are being told by the left that Pete Hegseth is this monster of a man?
Well, first of all, it's categorically false. So part of the reason why I specifically went there and sat through a majority of the confirmation is because I wanted to hear from my own ears what they were saying. You know, I'm a veteran, I'm a minority, I'm a member of Congress. But more importantly, I am concerned and I want to see the military get back to the lethal, respected fighting force that it previously was. And what I was listening to is how Pete was going to respond, what his vision was for the Department of Defense. And yet this sideshow seemed to be the distraction, the focus. They obviously had all coordinated their line of questioning, and they kept taking things that he was saying out of context, right? Like they're saying, oh, Pete, you don't want women to serve in the military. That simply is not true. They wanted to get into Pete's record on women in combat. And just like Pete, I hold the same ideology and perspective that there are certain roles that women do serve an incredible capacity in the Department of Defense. And there are certain parts of combat that they would be great at, right? So like in different parts of the world, there are female sniper teams that actually tend to outperform the males. There's different units that they can be assigned to. However, do I want to see women being forced to register for the draft? Absolutely not. That was something that Senate Democrats were actually pushing. Do I want to see women placed on special forces teams?
They want women to be drafted. Is that, I didn't, no kidding.
Yeah, well, yeah, they did. They actually, in one of the previous NDAs, Senate Democrats were actually pushing to forcibly register women for the draft. And we then stripped it out. GOP lawmakers on the Senate side said, no, that's not going to happen. But this is the ideology and perspective of, might I remind you, many people in Senate who've never actually served in the Department of Defense or even had their own family members serving. So yes, they were trying to register your daughters for the draft, which is completely wrong. But do I want to see women on special forces teams? Here's my perspective on that, and I hold the same sentiments as Pete Hegseth. They did a study, and they found that when men in these types of scenarios saw an injured woman, that it was in their nature to go and defend that woman, right? That is that quote unquote toxic masculinity of defending a woman that the left tries to constantly attack conservatives and Republicans on, and even men on. And the fact is that if you have a woman that is on a special forces team, regardless of what the focus is of the mission, if she gets hurt, every single man on that team is going to biologically respond and try to help her, as they should. That can jeopardize the entire mission. That can get more people hurt. And so in looking at lethality and looking at actually how to take a military and create the best fighting force on the face of the planet, those are all things that need to be considered. That's what Pete was saying, not what this skewed, perverted perspective that the Democrat senators were trying to push.
You know, as an Air Force veteran, one of the things that I wonder what your perspective is, that like, I was amazed at the number of personal questions about Pete's divorce, Pete's previous veteran service organizations that he worked for, et cetera. And yet I'm like, okay, well, in the Air Force, you've got a lot of old planes. In the Navy, we have a lot of ships that need to be replaced, right? And there were so few questions.
None of it was on that.
I mean, not even so few. There wasn't, I think I can count one about policy. And it just blows my mind that it's like, really, is that what you Democrats care about, is personal life? And I'm not saying that there's no value to some degree of asking somebody about some of these things. But the idea that basically not a single Democrat focused in on policy was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, unfortunately, what I've realized in my very short time in politics is that if you are a white male, if you're a male in general, we can look at what happened with the confirmations of our Supreme Court justices that were males and how they were treated if they were put up by a Republican president and if they were conservative leaning. We can see what happened with other confirmations in the past, that they will automatically attack your character. You will automatically be essentially demonized and labeled as a serial rapist with a drug problem. And that's unfortunately the political landscape that the Democrat Party, I would say, is largely responsible for creating. But it also, too, can unfortunately sometimes happen on the Republican side. And that stuff needs to stop. It should be based on merit. Now, I do applaud Pete Hegseth as when he first opened up his line in response to one of the initial questions on the confirmation, he directly addressed it. He did not run away from the issue, and he put that issue to rest. And so that should be something that those Democrat senators should have acknowledged, moved past it, and gotten to policy and perspective. What is your vision for the Department of Defense? But they didn't do that. And so I would just say that he did an incredible job. He didn't give them their sound bites. I do believe, and I'm hearing that he has the votes for confirmation. And so I look forward to looking with Secretary of Defense Hegseth and making our military strong as ever.
You know, you guys down there in Florida seem to be doing pretty well. You got a president of the United States who's about to come into office.
Yeah.
You got a Secretary of State in Marco Rubio, an Attorney General in Pam Bondi. I'm trying to think. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of other people. Like, it seems like you guys are now
president.
I said yeah. I mean,
States.
yeah, that's not a bad one too. But I mean, like, you're doing pretty well there in Florida, breeding. You know, Susie Wiles, the incoming chief of staff's from Florida.
James
Blair. I forgot that James Blair's from there. I mean, do you think it's all disproportionate because President Trump's from down there, or is it just happenstance that a lot of these great people are qualified for the right role and happen to be from Florida?
I just think that it happens to be on qualifications. A lot of what Florida has been messaging on, and really what I was arguably joking about before the DeSantis teams really started branding it, was Make America Florida. And,
right.
I think a lot of our political ideologies, especially during COVID, a lot of these national figures started rising up saying, hey, we don't agree with the lockdowns. We want, service members to be reinstated that were discharged. Really took a hard stance against the totalitarian push that the Biden administration was incoming with, right? And so I think that you'll find that there's a lot of other people from other parts of the country that are getting these phenomenal positions and nominations. For goodness sakes, we have a Kennedy that's going to be hopefully, up for a nomination here and confirmation here pretty soon. I think, but the fact is that Florida really has, I think, pushed Texas out of the way. I always tease my Texas colleagues on that, and that we're, taking their former title of being the most conservative state.
That's true. I mentioned Marco Rubio. I want to get to something that I know you're dealing with at the State Department now, and the contrast that's going on. Before I do, I mean, is there any thought about who Governor DeSantis should appoint?
I will say that I have been seeing him say on a regular basis that he's not going to be appointing a member of Congress. And, that's his decision to make. But I would caution the governor with this, and that if he does not appoint someone that's very conservative, there is going to be a very brutal primary for that seat. And whoever President Trump endorses in 2026 will win. That's just the landscape that's been created, not just in Florida, but nationally as well. And so I do hope that the governor, I ultimately know it's his decision. We respect his decision, and I have a great working relationship with the governor. But I hope that he also talks to President Trump on that, because, again, what we don't want in Florida is a brutal primary.
We talk a lot about personnel and nominations because that's kind of like the hip thing. But there's a lot of policy that's going to change. And I don't think we always appreciate some of the subtle changes and approaches to things that are going to change with this new administration. And one of the things that I think you guys are dealing with there is there's a whistleblower at the State Department talking about what's happening still within the Department of State and under the Biden administration. Can you walk us through what you know?
Yeah, so actually my office just received a call to onboard, and we're in the process of onboarding actually a whistleblower from JSOC who's a MARSOC raider. So,
okay, well, just explain so just for people who are sitting there, like, what do you mean by you saying onboarding and MARSOC and JSOC? Because I know what you're talking about, but not everyone speaks
military acronyms. Got it. So my office has the ability, and any congressional office can offer whistleblower protections. So if you're a federal employee and you come forward with information of corruption, whatever it might be, we can take that information and investigate. So my office was contacted by a military member who's basically the special operations version of the Marine Corps. He's a MARSOC officer. So long story short, to put it in a nutshell, we have information that was given to us that the State Department not only covered up and tried to delete the profile of an individual that's currently in the United States that's on the known terrorist watch list, but in an effort to undermine the previous Trump administration, they actually put a little girl, or are attempting to put a little girl into this individual's custody. So obviously we don't want children in the custody of terrorists, for one. And B, as a result of them intentionally undermining President Trump's previous decision in this custody case for this little girl, she was sent to Afghanistan, where she was actually sexually assaulted at 1 year old. And so my office is currently in the process of receiving that information. I am going to be blowing the lid on this. I am now currently sitting on foreign affairs. And so I've actually talked to Congressman Mass, who's our chairman. When I'm telling you, Sean, that there is no way that I'm going to let these people get away with that, I seriously mean it, especially because there's a child involved. But, unfortunately, policy, they don't care about who gets hurt in the process. And that's a very big difference between the Biden administration, the Biden State Department, and the incoming one with Trump.
So do you think this is like a political thing, or is this some career idiot doing the wrong thing?
It was political. They knew because this whole custody issue started under the Trump administration, and it was handled after Biden took over the State Department under Biden, reversed that decision. This little girl, as a result of that, was sent back to Afghanistan. She was sexually assaulted. They found her, brought her back to the States, and then there was actually coordinated, orchestrated efforts, not just with the State Department, but with the FBI, to then go after this whistleblower, of which his command at JSOC got involved. Some Ranger Battalion guys got involved, gave statements. Honestly, it's something that you would hear in a movie, and I know that's kind of the 18,000-foot level in the way that I'm explaining this, but because of the fact that we need to receive documentation and I need to officially get him onboarded as protected under my office for a whistleblower, there's certain information that I can't release at this time, but I'm not gonna let these people get away with it. It's wrong. I know that incoming Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, will definitely be helping, and I'm also in the process of reaching out to Harmeet Dhillon so that this never happens again.
When you hear stuff like that, I honestly, there's days in which, as long as I've been involved in like politics and whatever, I go, there's no way. And what you said was absolutely right. This sounds like something out of a movie, right? The idea that just stop for a second and go, okay, so there's someone on the terrorist watch list that they're allowing to stay in. That in itself, full stop.
Exactly.
Then a young child involved, and you're going, does this just make your blood boil sometimes as a person that's still new to politics to say, there's no way that people in our government are allowing this crap to happen?
It does, but I think many people watching this, to include you, Sean, as a parent,
Yeah.
as a mom of a 1.5-year-old, I just could not imagine that decision that would cause a little girl to be sexually assaulted because of politics, and it pisses me off. And I do look forward to bringing those names to the Secretary of State, to bring those names to Harmeet Dhillon, and to ensuring that those people are fired. In fact, if it were up to me, I think that the family should be able to seek some form of restitution for what that little girl went through. I know that President Trump's administration will solve it, but when you are in positions of power, even my position, your decisions have consequences. And those decisions had consequences. And that fact is that however old that little girl was, she's never going to be the same because of that. So those people will have something to, I think, address with God when it's their time.
Yeah. I mean, thank God you're dealing with it. How often does something like that happen, that somebody calls your office and says, I want to be a whistleblower for, maybe government waste or inefficiencies, or somebody stealing for the government, or God forbid a case like this?
I'd say that of all the things we've heard so far, this has probably been the worst, and mainly because I've seen like actual photo documentation.
But I mean, how often does somebody call your congressional office and say, I want to be a whistleblower because I've seen some enough? What?
All the time. We have a ton actually over at the Department of Veteran Affairs that our office has received. A lot of that has been resolved in that we didn't have to launch the investigations because we had the information. Those people were fired or dismissed. But also to Secretary McDonough over at the VA actually stopped taking my calls because I was also having issues with some of the VA hospitals under my purview and watch. And so, again, I mean, that's just one section of the federal government.
Wait, just so we're clear, by the way, I'm sorry, Congresswoman, the idea that the Secretary of the Veterans Affairs Department doesn't take the call of a member of Congress who is a veteran talking about malfeasance. You want to talk about qualifications about Pete Hegseth and so, and the guy who shouldn't have ever been confirmed as Secretary of the VA won't take your calls to talk about veterans?
He stopped taking our calls, and as a result of that, we had a case at the local VA that I believe was directly correlated to poor treatment, resulted in suicide, and as a result of that, the directors of different departments at that VA ended up resigning and/or early retirement. And again, this was something that we were flagging early on for the secretary. Yep.
Well, look, I'll just say this. Thank God you're there. Thank God that you're taking these calls, because people need to know that somebody in government is going to be responsive. So thank you for being with us, and thanks for what you're doing. You've served this country already. You're continuing to serve. You continue to speak out, and you're getting results. So I appreciate your time, and thanks. Again, this is what we need more of in government. People who actually are serving the people, not serving themselves. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And Sean, as soon as I get that profile of that terrorist, I'm going to give it to you to put out there first because we need to ensure that the American people know.
Done. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thanks, guys.
Guys, I cannot believe we just heard that. It is, I see a lot, you guys know this, we have a lot of great conversation on here. What she just said, it's heartbreaking, it's scary, it's upsetting, and I'm glad she's on the case. I'll say that. It's a Friday. We're going into the weekend. And on Monday, Marco Rubio will be poised to be Secretary of State. Donald Trump will be President of the United States. And so we won't have to put up with any more of that crap. But it's the weekend, so let's get into it. I want to talk about balls and inauguration. I'm emceeing one. I want to tell you about how awesome this is, the All American Ball. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell you about something that's great. I've been telling you guys about LifeVac for a while, right? About how you need one next to your fire extinguisher or your first aid kit. This takes the guesswork out of a choking incident. Anybody can be a hero. It is so simple to use, and it can save a life. Here's the kicker. It did save a life. One of you on the show purchased a LifeVac that saved a life. I got a call from them the other day, and they said, you're never going to guess what. One of the individuals that watches your show bought a LifeVac, and it saved a life. So this is how cool the show is. We have been helped part of saving a human being's life because of LifeVac. Like I said, fire departments, restaurants, cruise ships, everybody's getting LifeVac. If your kid's school doesn't have one, LifeVac will send them one for free. If you ever, God forbid, have to use it because of a choking incident, instead of wondering about the Heimlich maneuver and all this kind of stuff, are you going to hurt someone? You just use the LifeVac. This makes anybody a hero in the event of a choking incident. I am so happy I have one in my house. You should have one too. Don't be caught without one. And if you ever have to use it, they'll replace it for free. Get your very own at lifevac.net, lifevac.net. And it's lifevac.net, lifevac.net. Don't wait another minute. Your life could depend on it. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in Mike Harrigan, who is the producer of the All American Ball, and Deborah Snyder, who's the CEO of Operation Renewed Hope, who benefit from the All American Ball. They're the veterans charity that does this, and talk about what we're going to see this weekend. Guys, welcome in. Congratulations. I'm excited. It's we're getting ready for the big event. Mike Harrigan, you guys, this isn't your first rodeo. Talk to us a little bit about the ball, the history, what we can expect.
Yeah. So it is called the All American Inaugural Ball, and it is we've been doing this for about 30 years. Since Clinton's second inauguration. And essentially, it started when my first inaugural experience was Jimmy Carter's, believe it or not, way back. The person who lived across the street from us, Mike McGrath, was the speechwriter for Jimmy Carter. And our families were close, and so we had a big family. All 11 of us, I think, went to that inaugural, and it really resonated with me. It was very impactful that it had such an American experience. I just remember the flags and everyone cheering and everyone happy and celebrating the concept of freedom. And that just always sat with me. But then as I got older and I was putting on events, kind of realized looked around and saw that all the inaugural balls they're great and they have a place, but they're put on by different communities or states, and they're all kind of focused on what is important about that state and what is special about that state, which is awesome. But none of them are really about what brings us all together as the United States, right? And unite us and really celebrate the concept of diversity, but inclusion. Everyone together, and so that's when I decided to go ahead and put one together and make it the All American Ball, and really celebrate the best of us. And so we decided to focus on the people that the everyday heroes who really go out of their way above and beyond, go the extra mile, and often sacrifice everything to help others, and that really is what makes everyone great.
So I know Deborah is the CEO of Operation Renewed Hope Foundation.
Yeah.
They do some great work with veterans. I want to get to Deborah in a second and just talk about what they do. But how did you walk us through the charity aspect of this? Because you talk about, supporting all of these great American institutions, obviously veterans and what they do. And I'll let Deborah talk to that in a second. But how did you guys come to decide what charity to support this year?
We've always focused on or a lot of time on first responders and or veterans charities. And actually, Deb and I go way back. We both went to James Madison University back in the day. And I am familiar with her work and what she's been doing, and we got to talking and asked if she would be interested in working together on this and really focusing on some true heroes and bringing a light and support to her cause.
So Deborah, I know retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. Tell me about your charity and its role in this.
Yeah, so Operation Renewed Hope Foundation provides quality housing and supportive services to our veterans experiencing homelessness right here in the D.C. metro area. We were founded in 2011, and since then we've helped more than 1,500 veterans and their family members get into or stay in housing. And how we got involved with the other charities too is it takes a village to help veterans regardless, right? So some of these other nonprofits like CAMO, which is Center for Advancement of Military Music Opportunities, and Kathy Licarius is going to be representing that organization. We have worked with them. We've had some of their great singers at our Purple and Gold Ball that we have every year, our Purple and Gold Gala. And also Homes for Our Troops. We have, in fact, I went to them when I first started Operation Renewed Hope Foundation to get advice on how to proceed, because I was starting from scratch, putting a nonprofit together. And I tell you, it's, Sean, I think being a veteran, it is a brother and sisterhood like no other. And so we have to work together to help each other. And so if we have certain veterans that need to fix something that we can't fix, we go to other nonprofits as well. So that's part of the impetus of getting these other veteran charities involved as well.
So Mike, you've been doing this, as you mentioned, for quite some time. Talk to me about the evolution of balls. I went to some back in the day. I went to Trump's in 2016. I'll be with you guys emceeing this thing Saturday night. Tell me a little bit about what has changed as somebody who's seen this over the decades.
Yeah, well, so actually a lot has changed. A lot has kind of stayed the same. So there's a lot. They're mostly, as I said, they're put on by states, and so the states will generally will focus on what is special about their state. Some of the things that have changed, I know the Texas ball has really grown significantly, and really after the George
black
Bush.
tie and boots, right?
Yeah. It wasn't really on the map, at least that I knew of, until George Bush, the W, and then it exploded onto the scene. But some of the other things that we've kind of steered some change. They all used to be. You wouldn't get there was no drinks, no food. It was just, you pay a lot of money and you go, and it was just, there wasn't anything to it. And we
Wait a second. So you pay to just go listen to music? Is that what I'm like that?
That's what most of the balls were. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When we came onto the scene and started saying, well, we're going to have an open bar, it was like a shell shock. Everyone's like, what do you mean?
Everyone's like, I'm going to Mike's event.
Yeah, well, we definitely wanted to put the experience first. So, and this is something people look forward to. I mean, this is something they're going to remember and tell their grandkids about. And so to have a poor experience is just, it's really not acceptable to us. So that's really important.
So, Deborah, aside from running the charity that's benefiting from this, I know you're helping to coordinate some of this as well. There are some other people that are being honored. Who are some of those people?
Yeah, so Sheriff Mike Chapman from Loudoun County, he has 47 years of public service. So he is one phenomenal guy, and so he's another awardee. And we have Captain Luis Avila and his wife, Claudia. Captain Avila lost one of his legs in combat, and instead of sulking about it, he's still active duty, and
Really?
he's competing. He's competing in the games, like Invictus games, and they are really they have put their heart and soul into helping other veterans and especially caregivers, because caregivers are really, in my opinion, the unsung heroes out there. So we are so honored to be able to honor her, Claudia Avila, with the All American Heroes Award as well.
Mike, let me ask you this. I was downtown, I don't know, a couple days ago. I'm driving around D.C., and it's like a fortress. I mean, not just is the fencing up, but there's like a no parking sign everywhere. And how does the change in security this year in particular, and maybe, again, you've got some great perspective on this. Like, how has security changed, and how is that affecting your ability to make this still easy to get into, fun, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So it is a challenge. It is. That is something that has evolved over the years, and especially after 9/11. Everything kind of changed after that one. There's always been heavy security, but now you get a magnetometer, and you get everything going into all the places. But the perimeter, basically, when it comes to, depending on what day you do it, I think we're going to just miss the date of having to go, every vehicle having to get scanned getting into that area. But I think the morning after hours on Sunday morning, I think they go into kind of lockdown, and I think all the vehicles going in and out get checked. So really what the experience is from a customer standpoint is we're really pushing people to take the metro, go early. The advent of Uber and those types of things is really helpful, because parking, as you said, parking is really, really tough. So we're really advocating people to get a ride there.
Deborah, to Mike's point, when I first went to balls, like, you'd walk into this big room. At least in the balls that I went to, at least there was a bar. It was an open bar. You had to pay for it at some of the previous ones. But you went, they played music, you socialized, maybe had a couple drinks or whatever, and then left. You guys actually have like a program. So that's I think kind of a very unique thing about the All American Ball, at least to the balls that I've been at. Like I've been to Black Tie and Boots. You mentioned, Mike, the Texas State Society one. But same thing. You go there, you dance or stand in the corner and do the overbite look or whatever it is. Maybe have a couple of drinks, talk to some folks, and then go home. Deborah, walk us through what does the program look like that you guys are doing, and why do you do it the way you do, as opposed to just having a party?
Yeah, well, as Mike mentioned, this is about honoring All American heroes, and we even start off with one of our Air Force veterans singing the national anthem. His name is Julian Awari. He was on The Voice. He was top 20 on The Voice. Yeah. He sang at a Kansas City Chiefs football game.
Well, we won't hold that against him.
and believe it or not, he fell into homelessness, and we helped him out of it. And then I got on the phone with him. I said, "Hey, I understand you sing." And he sang at our last Purple and Gold Gala. Such an emotional event, and I'm so excited to have him out there again on Saturday. And we also have in the lineup Mark Fletcher from CAMO, the Center for Advancement of Military Music Opportunities. And then we have hopefully in the lineup Lee Greenwood to sing "God Bless the USA." And at the end is going to be Captain Luis Avila, and the Sicilian Tenors, which is a great group. They've also performed at NFL games. They are going to be singing along with him. And one of those Sicilian Tenors is an Air Force veteran. So we've really, got all all the military wrapped up in this program. And I think Mike can talk to the different entertainment zones inside the ballroom and outside the ballroom.
Yeah, Mike, it seems like you go in and get all jacked up on patriotism. You're all fired up, and then then what, do you go to a different entertainment zone? Like, okay, now that you're all fired up and you've got your God Bless America and your national anthem, and then what? You go dance to
Yeah. There's 6 different party or zones. It's about the experience. We want people to walk out of there and remember that forever, and feel like they had the experience of their lifetime. So it's like a circus. There's going to be, an interactive zone where you'll have like the racing presidents and the step and repeats and different magicians and just different activities going on.
This sounds. This sounds pretty cool. I mean, so it's not just go and hang out. It's, you want this to have. I mean, racing presidents and magician. This is not like your daddy's ball. To your point about back at Jimmy Carter. So it sounds like this is like a real it's black tie though, right? I mean, this is. I just want to make sure I'm going to wear the right thing here, and I'm not supposed to dress up and have fun.
Black tie optional. I think I'm probably going to be wearing a bright red jacket, but it's but there'll be probably half suits and half tuxedos, and but it's with the patriotic flair. We emphasize the patriotic part.
Oh, okay. I got that. It's like, so Pete Hegseth would be welcome there with his his belt and his jacket. I mean, there's a whole New York Times story about how he dressed patriotic, and so I guess we'll have to raid Pete's wardrobe to go to the All American Ball.
Yeah. The fashion police will not be there.
Yeah, all sorts of patriotism, first responders, but not the fashion police, right?
They got defunded.
So how many people show up at a ball like this?
2,000.
2,000 people.
Yeah.
And how big is this is at a hotel in downtown DC.
Yeah.
And give me a sense of, just from a planning perspective, is this something that you've been doing for, after the last one you went for 4 years? Because last time was COVID, right? Did you have one?
8 years. Yeah. No one did anything 4 years ago.
So, I mean, to my earlier question, did a lot of stuff change, or was it like, hey, I gotta get back in the ball groove because it's been a while? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you pick up the ball after 8 years. Sometimes it's a little like, wow, I didn't realize costs have gone up this much. Or
they have a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything, the expenses are much, much higher. But I've done many events. I've done formal balls for 10,000 people. And festivals for 40,000. So we have pretty good templates for how to put the stuff together, and doing it at a hotel is a lot easier than doing like a street festival or something. But no, it wasn't that hard. It was fun. That's probably what made it easier. It was just fun, and the people you talk to that are the guests that reach out, and it's a very nice experience.
So I know Deborah mentioned Lee Greenwood being honored this time. You guys have had some pretty big people in the past, right?
Yeah. So Buzz Aldrin has been probably 4 or 5 times he's come. So his birthday is January 20th, the inauguration day.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So he's celebrated every 4 years, except for the last one. His birthday with us at our ball, and he's gotten an award each time as well. And he's getting an award this time, but it's going to be in absentia. He won't be able to make it. He's 95. He's turning 95.
Yeah, I met his wife. She came when I was I don't know, probably 2 years ago. I think he'd put out a new book, and I got to meet her. But that's pretty cool. I mean, so now Lee Greenwood, and you always honor these first responders and American heroes, which has got to be pretty cool if you're one of these folks and get a call and say, hey, there's a ball, you're invited, and you're getting honored.
Yeah. It's very pride inducing for them. They feel really good about it, and we feel blessed. I mean, it's just to be able to honor them is an honor. Yeah.
Mike, let me ask you this, just as we get ready to wrap up the week, to head into the weekend, and then get into balls and events and parades and stuff like this. If somebody says, hey, I love what you guys are saying, I want to go to the All American Ball, can they still go? I put the link in the show notes on YouTube, and so if people want to go there, it's in my newsletter. I've had it every week because obviously I will be there. I've had a lot of people say, hey, so if people want to go at the last minute, is that an option for them or not?
Unfortunately, all of the tickets are sold out except for there's a few of the presidential pass tickets. It's like the highest end ticket, but otherwise they're all sold out. They can go to the website and if they want to get a presidential, if they're still available, but I doubt they will be on Friday.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm excited about this for this weekend. I think this is going to be fun. I really love the tone and tenor of this. Like, it's about America, right? It's an institution, the inaugural. Yes, this is about Donald Trump this time, but I think that, your longevity in doing this is about celebrating America and the institutions and the people that make it great. So hats off to you. Congratulations for everything. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. I've now got to figure out if I have to run out and get something. I was thinking I was going to straight black tie. You've given me a heads up. I don't know what I can get at the last minute. But anyway, guys, I will have a lot to post over the weekend. Keep an eye on Instagram. Obviously, Monday is a federal holiday ×2. It's Martin Luther King Day plus the inauguration. We will be live for the inauguration, giving you insight that nobody else has. Then back at 6, obviously, for the show. But stay with us all throughout the weekend. Sign up for my newsletter to get all the insight, SeanSpicer.com. We're excited. This is going to be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to going to the ball. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Monday, to sharing it all with you and breaking it all down. What a day it's going to be. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you back here on Monday.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.